welcome back to Hack and Splash Page. I'm Tiffany, and it's been a while, right? But here I am, and there you are, and let's just take it slow. You know what? Forget that. Let's just jump right into it. Today, we're going to be talking about Manifest Destiny, Flora and Fauna, Volume 1, written by Chris Dingus, with art by Matthew Roberts. This book takes the expedition made by Lewis and Clark across the frontier and turns it into this awesome monster hunting adventure. Okay, put your books away and get out your number 2 pencil, because it's time for a pop quiz. Okay, you know what? I'm kidding, because even just saying that made me really nervous and panicky, so we're not going to do that. But we are going to take a look at some of the real history that this book is based on. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the title, Manifest Destiny. It's a phrase that was coined around 1840 and describes the idea that America could not only spread from coast to coast, but it was destined to do so. This brought on the expansion westward, the war in Mexico, as well as the removal of Native Americans from their lands. But before we had a name for this expansion, America was already working on it with events like the Louisiana Purchase, which is where our friends Captain Meriwether Lewis and 2nd Lieutenant William Clark come in. See, Thomas Jefferson sent the pair off on their 2-year expedition in 1804 in order to explore the West and find the best way to actually get out there. Sure, the main focus of this little stroll was really about exploration and mapping, but the secondary focus was studying plants, animals, and building trade relations with the Native American tribes along the way. Just one more thing, let's talk about Sacagawea. There's a lot of myth and history surrounding this woman. Yes, she and her husband Toussaint Charbonneau joined the expedition in 1805. Yes, she did have her baby after joining the expedition. And yes, she did travel with them after having her child. But no, she was not a guide for them. Instead, it's believed that she actually helped them as a translator and was key for diplomatic matters. You got all that? So you probably want to know what happens in this book. Well, it definitely hits some of the historical notes of the Lewis and Clark expedition, but it doesn't stringently adhere to its path. For example, historical Lewis and Clark embarked on their trip with Army volunteers, whereas Chris Dingus's Lewis and Clark embarked on their trip with Army volunteers as well as criminals who were willing to join and be granted pardons. By the way, is there some secret link between the soldiers and these delinquents? There totally is. Let's look at another example. Historical Lewis and Clark go to the town of La Chalette, and so did Dingus's Lewis and Clark, except they're stopping at the town to pick up their guide, Toussaint Charbonneau. Remember him from the earlier facts? As well as Sacagawea, his bride and the mother of his unborn child. I know the multitude of historians who are watching this right now are like, well, that's just not right. They didn't join the expedition until much later. Well, strap in, folks, because historical Lewis and Clark are going to be benched for a while so that hip and cool Lewis and Clark can go get into some trouble. Before our documented duo even get to La Chalette, they disembark with a small party to explore this massive archway that's covered in this foreign plant life. So, you know, they're taking notes and collecting specimens and... You know what? Hang on, real quick, sidebar. Okay, remember how real Thomas Jefferson wanted these two to map and explore? Well, Dingus's Thomas Jefferson wants that too. But he also knows that there's something more than just woodchucks and fungus living beyond the Mississippi River. And he's actually sent this group out there to not only explore, but to exterminate. Okay? Awesome, back to the story. So they're out making notations when enter a half-bison-headed man. Well, a hail of bullets later, and this this thing, it's no more. But don't worry, history buffs. Lewis does an autopsy back on the boat and notes everything down. And then the merry band sets sail for La Charette. As sun dawns on the new day, they spot the town and a lovely, naked, green-eyed woman on a cliff who promptly takes a swan dive, splatting on the ground below. What's weird is upon searching, there's no body. However, there's this sort of strange mossy patch. But who has time to think about that when they're too busy running from the crazy buffalo centaur men and women who are now charging after them? They make a mad dash for La Charette and bar the fort's gate, only losing 2 men in the process. But at least they're safe in here, right? Right? Ever hear the phrase, out of the frying pan into the fire? Yeah. That's what happens to these guys. Without spoiling too much, let's just say that the townsfolk are really, really invested in 50% of the subtitle of this book. And on top of all of this, what if I told you that Sacagawea is a kick-ass warrior? Because she is. And it's awesome. Chris Dingus clearly knows his history, and it's a lot of fun to see him intertwine facts with story. Lewis and Clark themselves are well developed, and the personality difference he explores with these two friends adds a lot of depth. Dingus paces his action well, giving nice breaks in between the intense action so that you and the characters can process what's going on. He's carefully crafted side characters with their own agendas, who I look forward to learning more about in the coming volumes. Matthew Roberts' artwork is really fun and has this great illustrative feel to it that really lends itself to this sort of historical folklore. He has a nice range and it's really put on display throughout this book, from minimalistic backgrounds at times to the most super detailed figures other times, and everything in between. There's also a lot of fairly grotesque images in here, which he renders really well. but not in like a super hyper-realistic way. So you know what this story really does? It really jazzes up American folklore, which is great, because honestly, I'm not the biggest fan of 18th, 19th century American folklore. Like John Henry, very cool. But Johnny Appleseed and Paul Bunyan? A lot less cool. I mean, admittedly, a giant lumberjack with an equally giant blue ox should be awesome. And yet, in the end, it's just flapjacks and non-committal endings. And that's why I love Manifest Destiny. It alters history, and as it does, it creates this awesome and scary mythology for America. All in all, Manifest Destiny Flora and Fauna is a ton of fun in that, oh crap, that is messed up and crazy sort of way. I like the concept of exploring this alternative history, while also maybe making a commentary on the treatment of other races by the early American government. This book doesn't shy away from the actual temperaments of the day, which I'm glad it has the maturity to include. It may not be something that we like to be reminded of, but the fact is, that's what happened, and we can't rewrite that. However, we can write in crazy mythology, and this book does so brilliantly. It's dark, funny, and exciting, and just what I'm looking for in an adventure comic that reminds us that exploring the undiscovered country can yield amazing and terrifying results. If you want to get on board with Manifest Destiny, check out the link in the description box down below and get your own copy of Flora and Fauna, which collects issues 1 through 6 of the series. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and then go on over and check out all the other stuff that we're doing over on ComicPOP. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tiffany, and I'll see you next time.